Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? I am Dan from Trading with Dan. This is our Bitcoin morning update. So if you guys wouldn't mind smashing that like button, we shall go straight over to those Bitcoin 4-hour charts. Yes, the Bitcoin on the 4-hour. We had one of in the short term. Obviously, you get these in the short term. We had one of our elusive double tops. Obviously, you will hear me say we don't believe in double tops, but in the short term, things can happen like that. But I just mean in like longer macro trends, larger time frames, you don't really get double tops. But here we had a double top, a textbook double top here as well, where you kind of just push slightly higher than your recent high, trap in some FOMO longs, stop out some of the shorters who have their stops tightly at this level, and then yeah, slammers back down. So yeah, here we find ourselves smack bang in the middle of our upper range here. So we did actually dip below our important $64,000 level, but did recover that pretty quickly back to the middle of this range. So yeah, I mean, as I have been expecting, not for certain, but just on the balance of probabilities, in my opinion, was that yeah, we would find ourselves back in this range, and then the bullish scenario, as I have been alluding to, in my opinion, would be then we do hold above 64,000, and then trade obviously within this range here, the top part of obviously this wider range, which at some point we could potentially extend higher. Now we've got some new highs relative to this high, but we'll see. We're not in a rush to start moving any horizontals here, but yeah, all in all though, not looking bad. If Bitcoin can take the continuing propaganda index high prints on the chin, the CPI prints that we got today, that is shaking markets, which I think it certainly can take on the chin, because higher inflation is not in the immediate term bad for Bitcoin, but yeah, so no real reason to see why this is not just a pullback, and then yeah, we'll continue higher, but yeah, we'll see what happens. We've got our important levels. We've got the $64,000 level, we've got getting back above this previous high, back above here at some point, but like I said, I think we digest price action down here. Maybe we make a move back to the top and try and break up. Maybe we actually trade lower. I do think there's the risk of follow through to the downside in stock markets as they digest what's going on, but I think that will be short-lived, because ultimately the Bank of England, no less, have pretty much telegraphed to the market that there is no credibility in central banks, and they can literally bottle it at the last minute, which is nothing other than a show of weakness. There's no upside for them doing that. They were obviously forced. They couldn't raise the rates. They felt they couldn't raise the rates, even though they said they were going to. Did an about face, stood there with an egg on their face, and yeah, just fully projecting to the markets that there is no control. We knew there's no control anyway. We knew they were impotent, and we've been talking about this for ages, and then to literally see them do that about face on rate decision day is insane. It's pretty insane. I mean, these guys, all they have is their credibility, and just to literally to throw it out the window in such a fashion can only be viewed as a massive sign of weakness. The central banks are done. However, in the face of these inflation numbers, markets are pricing in more rate hikes, or a high percentage of, well, they're literally pricing in within the next 2 years more high rates in the US, that is, and that's obviously having its toll on markets. But yeah, like I said, they got no real shot. They got nothing. I mean, in the 70s, when tall Paul Volcker got a handle on inflation, I think the debt to GDP was around 30%, and the debt to GDP in the US now is around 140%, I believe. So there is no absolute no possibility rates been raised to tame this inflation. Just no possibility. And whilst we're on the subject of this rant, this is basically a battle between haves and have-nots, the elites and the poor, and it is a battle in the respect that basically inflation is just gonna benefit the rich, and if they have to do anything about inflation, it's gonna destroy asset prices, which is what basically the rich people own most of. So it will damage them, and if they don't do anything about the inflation, it basically hits the poor people. So the poor people that have to buy stuff, the poor people that inflation hits the hardest, the people that don't have assets to hedge against it and actually have rising costs of everything they need to buy, from housing, even their fuel bills, obviously a massively higher percentage of their income compared to like a rich person, and their food and everything. Did I say food? But yeah, just electricity, energy costs, everything. So we are literally at a standoff between the rich and the poor, with inflation is going to absolutely ravage the poor until they unless they bring it into line, unless they bring it down. The only way to bring it down is to obviously tighten and increase rates. That will literally be bad for everybody, but it'll be a lot worse for the rich, and they will massively reduce that wealth and income gap, as the rich then literally lose like masses of their wealth. But yeah, that is it. So we are literally living between a battle between the rich and the poor. The rich are in control. They are going to continue with it as long as they can, but obviously cognizant of the fact that the guillotines exist, that the French Revolution happened, and that if you squeeze the poor people enough, if inflation gets too high, they can't afford the food, they can't afford anything, they will kick off. And then, yeah, you never know. Let's get a bit conspiratorial here. Maybe that's why they're wanting more control and power and everything and dependency from everybody, because, you know, they're like, how else are they going to protect themselves when the SH1T does hit the fan, which it will hit the fan at some point, because literally the Fed is not the global elites, the Fed, the rich. They're not going to do anything to fight inflation until literally there is problems on the street. Let's put it that way. And then one final word on that, which I've literally just forgotten what the one final word was. Yeah, I've forgotten what it was. So yeah, anyway, you catch the drift. So anyway, that is enough of that. Obviously that is in the context of the inflation, the CPI inflation number that was higher than even all the economists' highest expectations. So yeah, so Bitcoin back into its range, still in a bullish environment, and let's see if it can push on. Yeah, that was the other thing. Inflation is literally the only way that you can inflate away the debt, and it's obviously the debt is a problem. So that is obviously why they want to go for this inflation route, because obviously deflation is absolutely catastrophic and basically doesn't even happen. It doesn't get allowed to happen. Everywhere where this stuff happens ends up inflation and then potentially hyperinflation. You don't get a deflationary burst. I mean, the nearest like the world has come to is Japan, and yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle, but they do what they do to obviously try and keep inflation above zero. Ethereum Satoshi pairing. Anyway, so let's look at some actual crypto markets. Ethereum Satoshi pairing looking good here in the context of the move down in Bitcoin. Obviously didn't move down as much as Bitcoin, which is they turn up for the books. This is obviously not what usually happens, but yeah, obviously the Bitcoin was driving us to the upside. So on this occasion, I guess the leverage got smashed out in the market, which wasn't in Ethereum as much. But yeah, Ethereum back above an important level here, and actually looking good. If it establishes itself back in this range, then yeah, it can really go going. What I will say, obviously with Bitcoin moving up and moving down aggressively, usually is when alts do bad. But if you do actually zoom out, and I'll say zoom out, but look at the wider picture, Bitcoin is basically now looking like it's just going to consolidate within this range. So it's not necessarily a surprise that Ethereum is doing well, because Bitcoin is now looking like it's going to consolidate and stop going up. So that is a time when altcoins thrive. But yeah, to see it move, to see it jump the gun so quick is obviously a bullish sign. And yeah, I mean, maybe we do get the big leg up this time above this big resistance area, and we start to go a bit mental. Maybe that is what is going to happen. I mean, we can see it in the USD pairing as well, recovering nicely. Obviously slammed down extremely hard on this chart on Kraken, but yeah, moving back up nicely. So yeah, DXY, I mean, I have said it doesn't even matter if this goes up, but yeah, look, broken up to new highs, obviously on inflation. Literally just on the basis the market is pricing in more rate hikes within the next 2 years. That is literally what this move is. So then you have to ask yourself, is that going to happen? Is that a realistic possibility? I personally don't think so, but hey, it's just my opinion. The market thinks yes, the Fed will raise, or it's not even necessarily the Fed. The actual market could raise rates itself, like what happened in Australia, where the bond market just said no to their yield curve control, and yeah, they just had to give up. But yeah, dollar looking good, looking good here. So hey, us over in I'm over in the UK. I mean, if we are crypto natives, and our crypto basically is valued in dollars, and the dollar is going up, it ain't necessarily the worst thing. A slight hedge there, but yeah, so let's look at where a lot of the, well, actually we'll just look at the 10-year again as well. Obviously 10-year rising, obviously reflecting those potential rising rates. This is literally the rising rates in the 10-year. This is obviously not the 2s though. There is a flattening of the yield curve, and flattening can lead to inversion, and inversion can lead to a recession. But yeah, there's turbulent, I mean, we've been talking about there's turbulent times ahead, but we are still in a relative safe, we're in a relative eye of the hurricane at the moment. And Q2 2022 is when all the 2s is when things might start to get a bit hairy. But between now and then, let's make hay whilst the sun shines. S&P as well magically hit down to the dot, exactly the top side of this trend line. This trend line that I thought was going to govern price action to the lower side, as in the underside. We were gonna move up, but governed by the underside of the trend line, but that was not to be. We blasted back up, so now is price action going to be governed by the upper side of it. This is what I think we do potentially for the next few days have more downside in this, just on the basis that I think people are going to start to get a bit worried, because the market clearly is thinking rates are going to rise, but I started off my trading career trading bond markets, so I literally was on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute watching European, US and UK rates, and I have seen on many occasions the market be fully wrong with what it expects, and even as we've already spoke about as well, with the market expecting that rate hike. Obviously that's a bit different, because literally the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, literally said they were going to do it practically and then didn't. But I've seen the market price things in and be completely wrong on many occasions. Yeah, this may potentially be another one, because rates, like I said, rates aren't going up. They're not even going to be able to finish the taper, let alone rates. Something is going to happen. There is going to be some sort of a great reset, a new paradigm, a new financial system. Let's hope it's crypto, because it's the only real alternative. It is TINA. There is no alternative, but you know that can't be as easily controlled by the global elites. They can't just carry on just doing whatever they do just to keep themselves rich. So there is going to be a stiff battle, but there are more of us than them. So if things do start to get bad, and there's social unrest in a large enough scale, these guys will capitulate, because it's that or they get decapitated, basically. So yeah, that is what is going on. We are going on a mad one this morning, guys. We are on a mad one. Bitcoin dominance, hitting into our resistance level, easing off here. So yeah, if we do put in a, if this just ends up being the high, the high, and then we move back down to try and make a lower low, that will be pretty fantabulous. I mean, this could be the context of the move into basically Q1 next year, where we do move down here, obviously in our meandering fashion, but yeah, break this and then find ourselves somewhere in the zone where we put in a low. That could be the end of the crypto altcoin bull run for a bit. And then and then we'll see what happens, but this could be the trajectory of the run that basically where we look to exit and regroup. So yeah, gold obviously like in life at the moment. Obviously gold in inverted commas an inflation hedge. Nice to see it moving up, obviously on higher inflation concerns. So yeah, it has broken up this important level. 1840 has been a really important level for gold for a long time. To find itself above, it can holding above so far, thus far. Then yeah, this can start to get moving. Maybe interest will start to pick up on this, but it's got a lot of work to do. It has got a lot of work to do. You can see the series of lower highs. I mean, you can obviously these are lower highs here, back above those. I mean, once we get above this one here, 1920, then I really do think people are going to start eyeing up well, potentially eyeing up towards $3,000 an ounce. Gold, silver also making a move. The gold silver ratio potentially not doing so well here. Yeah, as I expected, maybe easing off here because silver is also an industrial metal, and gold is literally practically just a precious metal. I mean, it is used in industry clearly, but for the most part, because of its price, it is more precious metal rather than industrial use driven, whereas obviously silver is a lot of industrial use driven. So let's have a look. Anything else you want to look at on here? We've looked at all this. No, let's look at those stochastics. Finally, let's look at those stochastics. See what they're looking at. Yeah, 4 hours still got more downward pressure here to be applied. So yeah, more pressure to be applied. So yeah, if we are just to trade sideways, maybe we do push into this area, this support area, a bit more before getting properly supported, and then start to consolidate properly. Maybe that's what 4 hours is indicating. 10 hours clearly going to be turning down on the way down if it loads. Yeah, so at 10 hour, as you can see, coming down. So we have got downward pressure here as well. 12 hour tick down as well. Daily looking a little bit like it could turn down here. 2 day looking all right though. 3 day looking okay. 5 day has turned down. What I think it must have been turned down before the other day. Weekly, and then everything else higher looking good. But it is again one of those scenarios where we are kind of looking at sideways consolidation, I believe. Again, still within this area, being the bullish scenario above 64,000, it being the bullish scenario. If we do lose that, we do lose 64, then yeah, realistically, as long as we hold, I mean, people may look to 60, but for me, the real level probably is actually 58. But yeah, that will be the level we kind of need to hold, and then again, it just will be sideways within this area, which is what I suspect will happen, because these are pretty toppy values for Bitcoin at the moment. I do feel we maybe need to do a bit of consolidation up here before pushing higher. But obviously, if the market gets over this inflation, the stock market gets over this inflation worry, because they kind of realize actually over the Bank of England has literally did a U-turn on rate day. Do we really expect the Fed is ever going to raise rates? Realistically, once the market maybe comes around to that assumption, then it will be we will be resuming the crack up boom, the Ludwig von Mises crack up boom that we talk about, and yeah, we'll be off to the races again. Not that we've even really pulled back that far anyway, so this was an aggressive trend line that I even suspected was going to govern prices by guiding us on the underside. We even broke above that, so we are massively, and we're still above that trend line now, so in the S&P that is. So realistically, we are still looking fine and dandy at these levels. It's just what I potentially think will just be a blip. But yeah, we could have more downside over the next couple of days, but ultimately the market will potentially come around to what I believe is the correct view, what I believe is so obviously the correct view. But I mean, clearly there are lots of more people out there and lots more smarter people out there, so they govern the whole market. But like I said, markets can be wrong. Markets can be wrong. So there we go. Thanks for listening. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always do your own research, and I shall speak to you guys soon.